Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar on catch up and consolidation with the wonderful Debbie Roberts. We're really excited to have you all here with us this afternoon. And if you just want to write where you're from in the chat box and write any questions that you've got as we go through the webinar, and we'll try and get through all those. So without any further ado, take it away, Debbie.
Thank you very much. What a nice introduction. Well, hello everyone. Good to be here with you all. I hope you're all taking good care of yourselves and having fun back in school. So welcome everyone. And I love interactive sessions. So if you want to type anything in the chat box, any suggestions, any comments, if you want to share anything, that is the thing that I miss the most about face-to-face sessions that we've had in the past. You do miss that interaction, that sharing of good practice. So please feel free to write anything in the chat box. It'd be nice to know where you're all from, and it would be lovely to know if you've been to any of my webinars before. Earlier on I did a webinar and the lovely presenter said I'd asked if anyone had been to my webinars before, and I found it very interesting that some of you do, and I recognise people's names at times. So it's nice to know that we are kind of together, we're still working together, even though we're miles apart. So welcome to this session. It is about catching up and consolidating learning with a very strong focus to home learning, because we're desperate to give the children the best that we can, and we're desperate to support them. We're very conscious that they've missed a lot of their learning, and we've missed a lot of our teaching as well. So home learning and homework is a really valuable opportunity. But we'll look at that, we'll work through it all, and please stop me if you need that, or you disagree, or you want something better or different. Just let me know. I'd like us to be able to plan engaging and productive homework. We've lost a lot of time. We really haven't got time to waste. And so all of our time needs to be productive, and it needs to be effective. So we want to use this home learning and homework almost like plugging the gaps, because we know that we won't have time. We never have time to cover the curriculum. It doesn't matter what school we're working in. It doesn't matter what country we're in. We never have time to work through the whole curriculum, do we, if we're absolutely honest? So we definitely won't have time to work through the curriculum and catch up on everything we've missed. So we need to be smart, really. So we're looking at catching up using effective homework, and I hope I can share some of my thoughts, research and ideas about how to develop this homework and how to make it efficient. It's also really important that we don't forget the skills. So I've been working in schools, luckily, over the last few weeks, and I'm very conscious that we're very focused on delivering the content and making sure that the students have got the content that they actually absolutely need. But it's more than that, because really, if you think about it, a lot of the children have been learning at home, and the parents, carers, people who are at home with them have supported them the best that they possibly can. And we've had some great resources from teachers. Teachers have been so creative in sending things home, but the one thing they have missed is the development of skills, because it's very difficult to develop skills when you're working in a confined space with fewer people. Children are not interacting like they did before. They're not collaborating, communicating, sharing. And that's something that we need to be conscious of. We're so busy trying to get the facts across that we also need to think about the skills as well. So let's work through them, and welcome everyone who's just joining us now. It's so good for you to take your time out to spend with us, and we hope that we can support you as much as we possibly can. And as I said, please feel free to chat. If you see me going like that, I'm not falling asleep. I'm actually going closer so I can read the chats in the chat box, because I actually love it when you send me comments and questions. What is homework? What is it? It's a set of tasks that are assigned to students by their teachers to be completed outside the classroom. So homework should be an extension of the learning that's taken place in school. I'm a massive advocate of two major things in my career, and they are inquiry-based learning, because I am an inquiry-based practitioner. I'm very proud and very privileged to have written, can I just say, over 100. I've got over 100 publications, but I've lost count. I'm writing quite quickly at the moment. So I have actually lost count how many have been published, but every single one of the resources that I've ever written is based on inquiry-based learning, and also it's also blended learning. And I think during this pandemic, if we've learned one valuable tool, it's blended learning. And blended learning lends itself wonderfully to homework, because in blended learning, we can get the foundation from the teacher in school. We can work with our colleagues, our friends, other students in the classroom, and we can build this fantastic, solid foundation to learning. And then through clever and very well designed home learning tasks, we can build on that foundation. And at the moment, because we're behind, we need to be able to build on that efficiently. So blended learning and inquiry-based learning, for me, will support us in developing the skills and also filling in the gaps, filling those gaps in missing learning and teaching. It's also about using practice materials. So things that have been taught in the class, we can deliver it efficiently. So we don't spend too much time on it. We don't dwell on it. We use that home learning time to extend and to practice and to enforce that learning, because learning from home has been very successful. Many students that we've assessed over the last couple of months have actually made progress in some areas. I think the people at home and parents are very conscious now of how their children learn. And I think that they've become very involved in that learning. I know they're all busy now, back at work, and life's getting back to normal. And that's great. But I think they're still very skilled in teaching their children. And so let's use that. Let's use that to support us as teachers and educators who are desperately trying to bring these children up to speed. So it's a great opportunity to use these relationships that have been developed between parents, carers, and children to actually now continue that through very smart home learning. So it also facilitates these specific skills of the mastery skills. It extends, it allows children to extend that learning further. And again, blended learning, well, it is about remote learning, and we can start the foundation at home remotely, and we can flip that back into school, or we can have the foundation in school and flip that into home learning. So this is a great opportunity to incorporate that also, and we know that's been valuable during this pandemic. So where does this homework come from? Well, Horace Mann's your man. Did you like what I did there? So Horace Mann was the guy, he was an educational reformer, and about the 1850s, late 1850s, he was actually a politician and an educational reformer. And he is the man, really, who we link the invention or the concept of homework to. I know some students might have thought, yeah, thanks a lot, Horace, that's great. But we now know that home learning is very valuable. So it soon became an educational, it was part of the establishment, and all schools worldwide engaged with some form of homeschool, home learn, homework. Now, way back in the sort of late 70s, 1970s, There was a lot of research about the actual value in doing homework. And it was actually, the consensus was arrived at that home learning actually wasn't very useful because it depended a lot on the resources that were at home. So if some children had, I don't know, great access to books or resources, the parents were well educated, then those children generally did well. Whereas other children who came from a background that were not that privileged maybe, and they were not doing as well. And it seemed very unfair. And as I said, it lost its status a little bit. But I think we've moved on since then. We know what homework shouldn't be, but this is what it should be. And if we do it properly, this will support us. It must be meaningful. It must have meaning. It's not just a case of there's a worksheet. There's a worksheet is fine. If that worksheet is doing something to support that enforcement of knowledge. So it must be meaningful. It must be meaningful to the child, to the teacher, to the examiner, to the curriculum writer. It has to have some purpose. It has to be manageable. Not only for the child needs to not feel overwhelmed. They shouldn't be overwhelmed by the sheer volume or the difficulty of the homework that's been set. Parents, carers shouldn't feel overwhelmed either. If you think that the parents and carers might find some of this challenging, then please just write some crib notes. Or, I don't know, if you've got some kind of school website or something, put a short video on. This is why we're doing this. This is how it should be done. Don't worry about that. We're not teaching that. You don't have to go into that. It would take a couple of minutes and it doesn't have to be very formal, but that would make it more manageable for some parents. It has to be efficient. We can't afford to waste time. I would never use the word efficient. Welcome, welcome. It was just arrived, welcome. I would never really use efficient and homework in the same sentence before now. Now, homework is no longer a luxury. It is actually part of the learning journey that our children are travelling upon. And so let's make it efficient. By personalised, differentiated. It needs to be challenging, but it needs to be challenging to all of our students, not just some. It doesn't need for you to be planning 4, 5, 6 different types of homework so that some children are challenged, some people are supported, some people are practicing. We don't want that scenario or that situation. It also needs to be interesting and stimulating. Now, if I told you to go away and watch, I don't know, a program, a video, a program on the internet about Horace Mann, it's only take an hour, off you go, you've got to watch it, and we'll discuss it. You would probably be, as I would be, not very engaged. And so you'd find it difficult and you wouldn't absorb the information too well. And it's exactly the same with all of us. The homework, if it's interesting and stimulating, they will want to be engaged in it. They will want to know. And suddenly that learning experience becomes very powerful and very efficient. So I'm telling you to write lots of different things and to plan your amazing lessons. And now we're planning really good home learning. But before we move on to planning, let's make sure that our students actually know that this is a team event. They are not alone. The pandemic has taught children, parents, and all of us, homework should definitely not lead to frustration. And I think the majority of the frustration is that they go home and they're overwhelmed by the actual content or the magnitude of it. Now, let's be honest, homework, whether you agree with it or not, if you give a student a piece of homework that you feel you've designed that is manageable and it is efficient and it's meaningful and they can't do it, then as educators, we need to think to ourselves, why is the student becoming frustrated with this work? And if we're honest, it will be that homework tests their understanding, mostly. If they don't understand the task, that informs us. That informs our planning. That means we need to go back to that because they haven't got that foundation. They don't understand it clearly enough to engage in that homework. That, or they're not interested. And if they're not interested, that means it's not engaging and it's not stimulating. So we need to go back to the drawing board a little bit. And the frustration also leads to the sheer magnitude of homework. We're trying to fill in so many different gaps from different subject areas that maybe we should occasionally reflect and think, are we overwhelming this child? Because if we are, they won't learn. And so what's the point, really? So we need to monitor and measure that frustration. Thanks for that. That's a really good point. So essential practice for effective homework means that the students are very conscious that they're part of this team. So they're working together as a team. The team consists of the student, the parents, carers, the teacher, the head teacher, the principal, anyone who's got some kind of investment in that team effort. And I think if children, I think they've learned this a lot through the pandemic, that their parents are engaged, their teachers are engaged, and it's a team effort. They need to be able to communicate freely without judgment. They need to, whether you judge them or not, they need to feel that they will not be judged for asking for help. If they're struggling and they admit it, then we need to engage with that and we need to give them the support that they need. Some children have changed during this pandemic, and I think we also need to be conscious of that. Parents should definitely be involved in homework, and that's another great point for that. Thanks for that, Desme, and that is a good point. It isn't just about the child, it's about that unit, and we do need to involve parents. We need parents. We need parents to help us plug those gaps. Otherwise, we can't give the children what we desperately want to give them, and that's a really good education. So why is homework so important? Why did that idea from the sort of late 70s, why did it change? Why did we suddenly start to think, well, actually, it is important? And there are various reasons for it. Ultimately, the child is learning in a different environment with different people, different surroundings, different things around them that they can engage with and that they can use, they can observe. And so it's a great opportunity for students to shift their understanding, synthesize their understanding. There it is, synthesis at the top of Bloom's taxonomy still. I still work by Bloom's taxonomy. It helps me all the time in everything. In my authoring, in my writing, in my CPD sessions, my training sessions. And synthesis is at the top because in homework allows children to study and to acquire a really deep intellectual understanding of the content, because they have to take that away and they have to work on that without the support of their teacher. It adds information to the long-term memory because in the classroom they're working on something and it's possibly in a room with lots of people in it, lots of distractions. And they learn the foundation from their teacher. When they go home and they build on that and they work on that and the homework is manageable, doable, not frustrating, not resulting in anxiety, they then start to use that information. And when they use that information, they're processing it, they're processing skills, and that takes it into the long-term memory. And when it's in the long-term memory, that's when our children store it, and that's better for recall, which is what we want at the end of the day. Let's not forget the study skills. Let's not forget learning to learn. Make sure that the children understand what they need to do to be able to study successfully. Have they managed the time well? Do they know how long they need to spend on this task? Have they got all the equipment that they need? Have they got all the resources that they need? Do they understand the question? They need to take responsibility for this, and all this is developing enquiry-based skills, which we'll have a look at in a minute. So the most effective homework we've now found is practicing skills. Let's not forget the skills. We're also busy with the content. Let's not forget that. Single skill tasks are the most effective. To master a class taught skill. So it's something that's been taught in the class. A skill in the classroom could be research, could be communication. It could be drawing a graph, it could be plotting a graph, drawing a table. It could be writing a sentence or a paragraph. Whatever it is that's been taught in the class, it should be building on that. And that's what effective homework is. These are some of the skills that we don't really readily associate with home learning, but the social skills for children of the age that we're teaching. They learn how to share, and you think, how can they if they're working at home? Because they're probably working with the siblings or the people at home, and they might be using it for blended learning, so they could be flipping it back into school. And so they might have to work as a team and then go home, do some work, come back and share it. They learn to cooperate in different ways. During the pandemic, I had the fortune of being able to carry on working with lots of teachers online, mostly, but face-to-face also. And they came up with some amazing ideas to help the children to continue to cooperate. I wasn't comfortable with these because I come from a different world, and it's not my skill set to use social media and things like that. I'm not comfortable with it. And so I wasn't comfortable to use that with children because I didn't feel I was skilled enough to keep them safe. But lots of people were skilled enough, and they used some amazing and imaginative social media, using parents, using other teachers, and they were able to allow the children to cooperate quite well using these things. So cooperation can be supported, and it can work working from home. They can follow instructions, directions, whatever you want to call it. They need to get home. They're on their own. They can't just ask the teacher, excuse me, do you want me to do? That won't work. So they need to understand. And with practice, they will actually learn that with practice, they have to know the instructions. They have to know the guidance before they actually go home. Otherwise, they will get into a mess. So there's so many different things that we can promote through clever homework. Don't try to promote all the skills and all the content because that won't work. So what is meaningful homework? Now, the most meaningful type of homework is where the student chooses the task. Now, that's a difficult one, and I know that. I've taught classes with lots of different people, huge numbers, 30, 40, 50, more. You can't always be that personal. But if we can allow our students, so if students have been learning something, they might have been researching something, and they come across an aspect that they're really interested in. If they come to you and say, I'm really interested in this, I can do this by, that is really powerful homework. Not always realistic, but it is the best. It must be challenging, but like you said before, challenging but doable. Not challenging to increase frustration and anxiety. We must have achievable goals. The children must know that they can actually achieve and succeed. It must include some kind of cooperation with other people. So the children must be able to communicate with each other and cooperate with one another, because collaboration is a key skill. Why do we push the skills so much? Why am I so interested in skills? Because we're preparing young people for a future that we have no idea what it will look like. We don't know what their tomorrow is. We really don't. We can only imagine, but we do know that they will be collaborating, they will be researching, they will be communicating. And so we need to focus on these skills so that the children can then organise and manage their own learning of the content. And it does work, but it does take a lot of planning. Let's just review inquiry-based learning. What is it? What is it and what isn't it? It is student-led. It's not the teacher stood at the front. One of my most positive lessons was where the principal came into the classroom, and I was teaching older children at the time, and he said, where's your teacher? And one of the students said, I do not know. I don't think I've seen her today. And the principal said, who's teaching this lesson? And my student said, I am. Because they'd been trained in inquiry-based learning. And no, I didn't need to stand at the front saying, you do this, you do that, you sit down, you open the book, you need to work with that person, I didn't have to do that. This is what we need to know for the exam. This is the best way to do it. Find someone that you can work with. Let's do this. And if you need me, I'll be circulating around the room. And that's what inquiry-based learning really looks like. It's effective questioning is at the heart of good inquiry-based learning. If that question comes from a student, that is amazing. If the question comes from the student and that drives their learning, that means they're engaged, they're stimulated, they're interested. If the question comes from you, cleverly designed questions can really inspire children and can really get them interested in what they're doing. Research is a huge part of inquiry-based learning. Often in resources, especially the ones that I've written that I can speak for, they'll often have a look at this, see if you can find out, what does this mean? What do other scientists say? What do other mathematicians say? What did that author say? It's all about them finding out for themselves, because if they find out for themselves the processing information, they'll understand it to a deeper level and they'll remember it. They find out for themselves, they discover for themselves. To me, that's inquiry-based learning. They discover for themselves. They take a huge responsibility for their own learning. No longer is it, my teacher didn't tell me that. Did you ask? Well, no. Well, is that my fault? I don't think it is. It results in education being done with them. They are a part of their education. It's not done something that's done to them. It's done with them. They're encouraged to review and reflect. If we were together now in a room, I'd say, okay, I want you to review and reflect on your day today. When I'm training teachers, I make them review and reflect. They have to fill out a reflective journal so that I can see that they're actually thinking about their progress, their teaching, their development. But how many of you review and reflect? I can't even say it, let alone do it. But how many of you review and reflect on a regular basis every day? No, you don't, because you haven't got the time. And if you do, you review and reflect on that one thing that didn't quite go right. You don't review and reflect on all the brilliant things you did today, on all the light bulbs that went on, and all the inspiration. You review that one thing. Inquiry-based learning is skills-based learning, and in some places, if you're doing any research or you're looking around, skills-based learning is the same thing. It enhances learning and motivation. Why? Well, if you look at that list, because it's interesting, it's motivating, they're responsible, they're in charge. There you go. It's all about discussion, analysis, synthesis, getting to that higher order learning skills, those deeper intellectual levels of understanding, that intellectual and cognitive learning that develops those skills that are lifelong skills and the cross-curricular skills. The benefits, Students become self-organised. They know what they need to do and why they need to do it. They have an independent approach to learning. They learn it their way, in the way that suits them, in the way that they know they can be successful. They learn to handle resources effectively. Just recently I was in a classroom and I asked a child what a word meant and they said, I don't know. I said, well, you need to find out then, don't you really? Yeah, what does it mean? I said, no, you find out. I don't know how to find out. Well, open a book. Look in the glossary. We need to use a range of resources. I know they're all whizzes on the internet. My godson is only 5 and he can find anything within seconds, way better than I can. But there's more to life than that. We need a range of resources so that we can develop those skills. Children become so they can communicate effectively. They don't just work with their friend and sit next to their friend for the rest of their school life. They have to work within a team. They mix teams. They might become a team leader, a project manager. They might be one of the team and learn to be one of the team. Learn to respect other people's opinions. Learn to respect what other people, their ideas are. They need to collaborate, to work together, to problem solve, and to find solutions. Not focus on the problem, just solve it. Come up with solutions and test those solutions. Do you know if it goes wrong? So what? Children need to develop their growth mindset where they know if it doesn't go according to plan, it's absolutely fine. If you take an assessment and you get every single answer correct, is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a great thing if you're reviewing your understanding of a particular subject, but you don't learn anything from it because you've already learned it. It's good evidence that you've learned it, but you didn't actually learn anything from the experience of taking the test until you get something wrong. And then suddenly you learn, why did I do it wrong? You learn to analyse it. You need to analyse the question, the answer. You learn to find out the correct answer. You learn to figure out where you went wrong. Suddenly you've got a toolbox. So next time when you come across something where you've got 2 or 3 answers incorrect, you know what to do about it because it's happened to you before. Homework. Right, should homework be given every day? Now again, if we were all together, I'd ask you, do you think it should be given every day? No. These people are primary children, the children. Children should learn through play. Learning through play is more effective with certain age groups of children, okay? If you give your children homework every day, they're working at school all day, they're doing the homework at the end of the day, tell me, when do they play? I believe if homework's given every single day, it results in anxiety and frustration, and it's not manageable. I hope you agree with that. You have to follow the protocol of your school and you have to learn, you have to live to your contract, you have to follow that. But if that says homework every day, then you do homework every day. But for me, homework every day is not manageable. It's not just not manageable for the children, it's not manageable for you either. When are you doing all this classroom marking, all this lesson design, all this homework design, and all this homework marking? That's not manageable for you either. And so what generally happens is something gets left. There isn't any point in setting work and homework if you don't have the chance to feed back on it. It's the feedback that's the powerful bit. So we have to be realistic. It has to be manageable. So for me, no. I'm sure there isn't any data. I haven't ever come across any research. No, I definitely haven't come across any research to say how much. It's very personal to you and your children. So that would be up to your leaders and your experience and knowledge of your children, but I wouldn't. Okay, so what have I told you to do? I've told you to catch up. at least a year. Incidentally, who are you catching up to? Who's out there in the lead? Who are we all chasing in this race? This pandemic catch-up race? Who's in the lead? No one. It's a pandemic. We're all in the same situation. We've all missed at least a year's worth of teaching and learning. All of us. It's a pandemic. We're all in the same situation. So I'm not sure who we're catching up to, because we're all on a level playing field. We're all in the same position. So there isn't anyone out there in front. We know where we'd like to be, and we know where they were 2 years ago. But we can't really catch up to that, can we? Because we're trying to move forward, but actually that's in the past. So pointless. So, I'm just putting that one out there. Try not to put yourself under too much pressure, because the children know you're under pressure. They're under pressure. They're anxious, frustrated. They can't work. So let's just and try to calm down. So I've told you to do a lot. I've told you to plan engaging lessons, catch up. I've told you to plan brilliant, amazing, efficient, effective homework. I've told you to mark it all and give feedback. Phew. Oh, I've told you to differentiate too. We don't have to write it all ourselves. There are some amazing resources out there, some fantastic resources, lots of them I've written. So I know they are, but no, I have always used workbooks and like revision guides, worksheet booklets, things like that. I've always used them because someone else has taken a lot of time to design and write them. Someone's edited them. Someone's made sure they fit to the curriculum. So why would I tell you to waste your life writing something that's already been done? So there are some brilliant resources, and I want to talk you through the resources so that you become confident in using them. So most of the books cover the curriculum. But if you're using a different curriculum, you're wise. You know what fits the curriculum and what doesn't. So you just select and use your confidence. And if you're not confident, there will be someone else that you can ask. So we've got activities that support the content that's taught in the lesson. So you're not going off on a tangent. You're actually enforcing what they've already learned. They work at their own pace. They can work by themselves. They can work in pairs or in small groups on these home learning tasks. Lots of schools have homework clubs. So students can actually collaborate and communicate and extend the classroom learning, but they're still using those collaborating communication skills. Some of them are designed to be carried out at home, some of these workbook activities. In fact, I did a review a couple of years ago for Macmillan, and I reviewed a scheme of theirs, and I looked if all of the tasks that were in the workbooks could be carried out safely and efficiently and effectively at home. And to this day, I cannot remember. There might have been a handful that really might have been tricky to carry out at home, and that really was because maybe they wouldn't have the resources or something. But I honestly can only remember a very, very small amount that could not be carried out at home with a little bit of tweaking. And that little bit of tweaking needs to be done by yourself. And as I said before, inform the parents. If they need 6 empty soda bottles for this home learning, then let them know, let them collect them, let them keep them, let them clean them. So communicate, carry on this communication with parents and people at home, and prepare them for the homework. If there's some teacher notes that you've got with a workbook, send the teacher note for the parent so that they can actually understand and feel confident to support the children with some of these activities. So all of them in these workbook and resources that you can buy, workbooks, notebooks, there's called so many different things, but ultimately they're a list of worksheets, aren't they? They're a book of worksheets. All of them can be carried out in the classroom to support students, but all of them could also be carried out at home. But you might need to be sensible and think about safety or things like that. Home learning is a brilliant opportunity to review and to reflect on the learning that's taken place in the classroom. Students become responsible for their own progress. So we'll look in a minute at doing assessments in a slightly different way that trains children to realise their own progress and manage that. They learn how to monitor their own progress. They work remotely in a completely different setting, different environment. A school I work in was working with quite young children, sort of year 1, year 2 children. And she realised, especially it became really important after the pandemic, the children had been learning at home, and it was evident that they had been learning. They had been participating in home learning tasks. They'd made some progress in some areas, which was really pleasing. But they found great difficulty in sitting in a chair at a desk for long periods of time, because they realised at the school that they were used to maybe sitting on the floor, sitting outside, laying on the floor, sitting on a cushion. And they realised that, yeah, they were still working, but their environment was different. And now we brought them back into school and we said, sit there, hold your pen, put your uniform on. And some very young children found that really, really scary. And so they had 2, I think 3 classrooms in the school where they just abolished furniture. The furniture went. They were all nicely carpeted. There were cushions. They wore indoor shoes or socks so that they didn't go outside and bring dirt in and then sit on the floor. And you know what? It worked incredibly well. And they gradually transitioned back into sitting at a desk. But I believe the other day I was told that they still have 2 classes where they don't sit at a desk. And they soon get into it as they get older. But for those years where they don't feel comfortable and they want to be relaxed with their learning, it worked really well. This is an idea from one of the workbooks. This is a review and reflect. So that pyramid is where children can look at the objectives and the key words for a whole unit ahead of them before they've started learning it. And what they do is they decide what they already know. What do I already know about this subject? A very traditional and experienced teacher said, how would they know? How do you expect them to know anything? We haven't started teaching it yet. How would they know? And I said, do they not live in the real world? Our children live in a real world. They have access to some fantastic technology, brilliant resources. They see things, they experience things, they hear things. Their knowledge is far vaster than we often think. I don't. I give them credit because they constantly amaze me. So how useful is it when we haven't got much time and we need to be efficient? Let's find out what they already know. Why teach them about phonics if they're already phonics experts? Why teach them about equilateral triangles if they already know about equilateral triangles? What's the point? We haven't got time. We've got to be efficient. So activities like this where we ask children to go and sit somewhere and really take time, talk about the objectives and the keywords. What does it mean to them? And then fill in something like this. I already know this. Do you know, I've heard that. I've heard of an equilateral triangle, and I know a triangle can be this shape, but I'm not sure if that's an equilateral. What would I really like to learn more about? Well, I'd really love to learn about shapes and how they fit together and how we can use them. So can you see that that is your planning tool? Use that collectively for a group of children and you are personalising their learning fantastically well, which is so efficient. The second one is a similar sort of thing where the children write down, this one's physical and chemical changes just because I had it available to me. And they're reviewing through clever questioning. The teacher hasn't designed that clever questioning, it's been designed for them to use. So people, use resources. You seriously have not got the time. Use whatever's available. Share. We need to be effective. Okay. This is another one. This is from an English language workbook. And so this one can be used at home where the children can actually work with the people at home to do the digraphs. They can complete that worksheet. It's there. It's in real time. They look at it, they complete it. The other one's quite supportive where they've got some clues, they've got a picture, they've got letters to use, they've got the alphabet that's written out for them. So they're applying the knowledge, they're consolidating their knowledge, they're extending the confidence as well as their understanding. And it's engaging, it's fun, and they're working with the people at home, which is always fun if it's done right. My children used to love laughing at me, so I constantly used to get things wrong just to make them interested and engaged. Let them teach me. It's good fun. In blended learning, project learning is a really, really clear and effective piece of work for blended learning. It's a great strategy. It allows children to go off into an imaginary world, to be creative, to explore, to use things slightly different, to experiment, to investigate, to research. This one's about the weather, so at the moment it's very interested in the UK. We've had some amazing thunderstorms, and today it was hailstoning, about that big they were. So might be a slight exaggeration, that big. But anyway, we've had some unique weather, not as unique as your weather, but hey, it's not as warm as where you are either. So we've all got our crosses to bear. So this one's about homework, but it's stepped. So it's guiding the children through this project and through the content and how to arrive at the destination. But it's very clever because it's not saying, now you need to turn to page 23 and write this down. It's saying, have you thought about this? Write a definition for this. Now find out what this means. Now let's look at this. You found this out, so let's try and answer these questions now. So it's very clever and allowing students to work independently, yet remotely. So they're working just with that worksheet. And again, this is from some of the resources the Macmillan resources, all of these. This is another one that could be project-based. The children could build on this. They could make up their own word puzzle at the end once they become confident. They could work with the people at home to design some kind of a word puzzle or some kind of a game or quiz and test it out on each other, then take it back into school, and that's another set of home learning tasks. Great for differentiation. Some children, when they're working on investigations, you might say to them, go home and write up that investigation. That's really daunting for some children. That looks like a huge task. But by giving them something, a worksheet like this that breaks it down, and we've drawn the table of results for them. And I hear someone saying recently, yeah, but it's okay that, giving them a table of results, yeah, they can complete the work quicker. But how do they learn to draw a table of results? Well, rather than you standing at the front and saying, this is how you draw a table of results, they're subconsciously learning how to draw a table of results because they can't complete that task if they don't understand that table of results. So they're actually learning how to use a correct table of results, to use a properly designed table of results. So actually, they're almost learning the skill of drawing the table subconsciously while they're actually completing the information in that table. So that's another useful method. This one's great again for differentiation because this takes the children step by step. So they fill in the flow chart, looking and thinking about different materials and how they make a flow chart of the weather. They try and do it from memory. So then they go back and they check it. And then when they're happy that they've got it right, they can then write down the answers to the questions that are linked to each stage of that process. And so it takes them again step by step. So they're working very independently, but they're really supported, even though the teacher's not there. So the differentiation that we said earlier, I'm not asking you to write 6 worksheets. I'm asking you to use the worksheets wisely. Don't give all of the students the same worksheet. I know you wouldn't, but the danger that we're in at the moment is that we're rushing. We're really trying to be efficient, super efficient. Let's not rush it and make mistakes. Let's encourage our students by knowing our students so well that we can actually give them individual worksheets that will support them. So here we go with a challenge. We're synthesizing knowledge in this challenge. Be confident because often these synthesis of knowledge and challenges don't necessarily fit into the curriculum, but the skill does, because we might be asking them to learn something in depth and then synthesize that knowledge into a completely different situation. You might be thinking, we haven't got time, we can't afford time to do that. We need to focus on the content. We need to focus on the skills also. And synthesis is the top of Bloom's taxonomy because it is the hardest concept. Not that long ago, I asked a group of teachers what we mean by synthesis of knowledge. None of them could answer it effectively. So we need to not be afraid to synthesize, expect our children to synthesize knowledge that they've learned in the classroom. We're coming to the end of this, people. Has anyone got any questions or comments that I can be answering while we're finishing the last few slides? Has anybody got anything to share? Any good practice? We've had some great comments, I must admit, and a couple of really good questions that I've managed to answer as we've worked through. But if you've got absolutely anything that you'd like to comment on, any questions, any queries, please, if you type away now, I will have time to answer them before the end. So, as part of this synthesis of knowledge, we can use different activities like this. So this one's about surnames, and we're looking at heritage and where the names came from, popular names that are around at the moment in the Caribbean, comparing that to the real world, to the big picture. So we're looking at the Caribbean as a world, the world around them, the world that's surrounding them, and then we're taking that out and we're comparing it even deeper and bigger to the whole world around us. This requires a much deeper intellectual level, and that can only come through inquiry-based learning, through actually finding out for ourselves, through researching it, through questioning things and building ourselves. The children need to be building their own walls of knowledge, because then they can pick on those different sections and they can order it and they can make that synthesis into new situations and problem solve. This is one obviously for science, but we can use it in lots of the subject areas and lots of the practical areas. So this one is looking at, I guess, content. Can you see how you could give this worksheet in so many different ways? You could give out the worksheet and say, build a telescope. That's great fun. That's good fun. And they'll enjoy it and they'll be engaged and they'll be interested, and they probably will build a telescope that they can use. Can you see by saying, okay, let's learn how to be a good scientist. So if it goes wrong or it doesn't quite go the way that we expected it to, what do we do? Do we just cry and throw it away? No, we think about it. Okay, so that's not stuck there. Why isn't it stuck there? The sticky tape's not very good. I need some stronger glue. I need to hold it together for longer until it bonds and the adhesive properties of the material stick the two pieces together. What's the independent variable? What am I actually changing? Am I changing the lenses? Am I changing the distance I hold it from my eye? Am I changing the distance I hold it from the object? What's the dependent variable? Am I measuring anything? Am I observing something? Am I observing something? How well can I see? Does it change any difference? Does the lens change what I can see? Any control variables? Well, yeah, if you put 3 lenses in a convex and a concave and a normal lens, well, how do you know what the results are? You don't know if the dependent result is dependent on the concave, the convex, the normal, or all three together. So we're learning the skill of being a scientist, or we're learning the skill of being a mathematician. We're learning the skills. We're doing a great activity, and the activity is most definitely linked to the content of the lesson because we're doing about lenses and the way that the eye works and the way that we see things. But the clever part is we're actually teaching them, in this case, to be a good scientist too, because of the way that we put the home learning forward. We're not just giving them the worksheet, we're asking them to think about these different things that are scientific. Using real data is a great opportunity to use real world data at the moment. There is so much of it about. A lot of it is because of the pandemic, so we've got lots of graphs, tables, charts, percentages, even the RF, the R factor. Wow, gosh, wow. 4 or 5 years ago, I was teaching a revision conference, and some of the teachers couldn't calculate the RF value because they'd forgotten, because we'd not done it for a long time. But actually, now it's all over the news, and we all can do it, and we're all experts at it. Or we were. This is a great opportunity to allow students to see that we don't just do maths in maths. We don't just do English for English or science for science. It's actually part of the real world, the big picture. Their parents will be looking at data. You can't avoid data. You open a magazine or a catalogue, there will be some data in there. You watch the news, there will be data. You look at a TV program, advertising is huge using data. Always makes me laugh when it says 3 out of 5 women said that this cream made their wrinkles disappear. And then in tiny print at the bottom, it says 5 people were asked. Not really very reliable data, but they're using data. So let's use real life, real world data. Give our parents the confidence to be able to go into a store and say, what percentage of that have we just bought? Or if we take off 10% discount, how much will that cost? Use the real data, show children the importance of it, make sense of it, use it. Why are some of these worksheets and things right on? I know as a parent, sometimes I've got, I've got to buy 2 of these, I've got to buy 3 of these. It is valuable, that's why. The student records information real time. They don't go away and the memory, they forget what they were writing. It's there in front of them, they fill it in. They record as they learn. They record real time information. They can use it to review what they actually know. How well have I understood this? They can reflect on their learning. Why don't I know much about this? Oh, right, I remember I didn't feel well that day. I had to finish school early. I had to go somewhere. When the sheets are completed, and here's the thing, when the sheets are completed and you've corrected and you've marked and given feedback, it then becomes a brilliant revision tool. If you've not marked it and given feedback, it might not. You've got some more examples of things to use that you'll get in a copy of this presentation eventually, so you can use those. Assessment ideas. Get them to do the assessment at the start of the unit before they've started learning and tell them it's fine, just keep it. This is a good thing. This will help you and give you confidence. In the middle of the learning journey, repeat the same questions. At the end, sit the same questions. This will show the progress that they have made through that learning journey, which will hopefully give them confidence, take away some of that anxiety, and take away some of that frustration. I've really enjoyed working with you. Thank you so much for your questions and your comments. I really do appreciate it. Gets a little bit lonely sat here looking at this screen all the time. I do miss being out in the Caribbean with you all, and hopefully one day we'll meet again soon, but take care in the meantime. And I do hope that you can use some of this. You might get a chance to reflect on the PowerPoint at some time, and you can use the resources that way and review and reflect. Any questions in the meantime, you've got some contact details here. You will get a certificate apparently you will get a certificate. Not apparently, you will. But don't worry if it takes a little while. And you will also get access to a copy of this recording and this presentation. So thank you so much. Susanna, thank you so much. That's such a nice thing to say. I really do appreciate that. Thank you for your lovely comments. It means the world. I'm so pleased that I've been able to help you, and I've really enjoyed working with you. So see you soon, I hope. And over to Macmillan, to the lovely Elliot.
Thank you so much, Debbie. It was that was brilliant. I found it so interesting, and I'm sure that everyone else has as well. So thank you, Debbie, and thank you everyone for coming. We will be sending out those certificates, but in the meantime, if you have any questions about the resources or anything that we've covered in the webinar today, you can reach out on any of those social media channels or on our email, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for coming, everyone, and thanks, Debbie.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye.
Bye.